Okay,
All
recording
right.
is on. Thank you, Susan, for being here, and I'll leave you the floor so you can present the Center of Business, Ethical and Sustainable Business at San Francisco State University, where you're the director. And so the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone. My name is Susan Cholette, and I am here in Nice right now. I've been invited nominally to teach two different classes, a project management class in the executive MBA and then an operations class in the BBA. But I am a professor at San Francisco State. I've been teaching in the decision sciences department there for almost 2 decades. But now I am wearing a different hat because I just became the director for our Center for Ethical and Sustainable Business last fall. So I would like to talk to you about what we're doing there. So why am I qualified to talk about sustainability and all that? I would argue that I come from a bit of a background that gives me some of this. So I live in San Francisco, which has been nominated as North America's greenest city. Now, North America still probably has a lot of cities. I mean, as a whole, that's not necessarily as much of an achievement. We're not the greenest city in the world, for example, but there are a lot of initiatives within the city of San Francisco that show that we are very committed to being greener. So we have a vision for zero waste that is supposedly going to be realized in 10 years. We have a lot of other initiatives as well that are focused on minimizing the use of cars, increasing the use of public transit, and otherwise greening the city. And I teach at San Francisco State University, and that is regularly ranked as one of the top schools from a sustainability perspective. So according to the Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, we were the #1 school, or with sharing it with other honors. And these rankings are focused on North American schools for the most part, for not wasting water. And we tend to have a lot of other initiatives as well. And on the ethical side, we have been ranked 3rd by the Wall Street Journal for our commitment to diversity and inclusion. So faculty and staff being representative of more than just a bunch of old white males, for example. And within the San Francisco State University, I teach at the Lamb Family College of Business, which is one of the larger colleges within the university as a whole. And we were recently awarded an honor as being considered one of the top 10 green MBA programs within the United States. We have 3 different certificate programs that students can pursue while they're getting an MBA. They can focus in sustainability, ethics and compliance, and even a very hot new topic, which is ethics in artificial intelligence. So making sure that your racial profiling setups don't say, for example, target Black people unfairly. This is something, sadly, that has been shown to happen. But what I am here to talk about more is we have had, for the past over a decade, the Center for Ethical and Sustainable Business, which I am now heading up. So I came on in October, and we, even though we're still, we're a mix of in-person and online right now, but we had we had a couple events that were available over Zoom in the fall. And the good thing now about Zoom is that we can invite anyone, and we have. So our events are free and they are open to the public. Sometimes we want people to register in advance, but often we just open it up. And at some point we may have to deal with the limitation that our particular Zoom allows only, I don't know, 250 or 300 seats, but we'll deal with that problem when we have it. Usually our events are under 100 participants that are live. And another great thing about having these kinds of events online is that as long as everyone agrees, you can then record, and then those recordings can be available later. So for both of the two panel discussions that we had, if you're curious to know, hey, what was discussed, because they were both very interesting, those recordings are available on the website. I tried to include web links on this slide deck so that you can have access to any of these and click on them. Okay, so what are we doing next? We will have another Zoom event. We're still working out the details. It's either going to be the end of February or beginning of March. And we are partnering with a professional organization called Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability. And by the way, the event is, all their events are open to men as well, but there is a focus on trying to get more women into some of the fields, because tech in particular has been traditionally kind of male dominated. So the discussion will be focused on getting a job in clean tech. So we're going to have several different members from the organization, one of whom is an alumna of San Francisco State, talk about how they got their jobs and how they think that current students and recent graduates might consider trying to get a job in the industry. And of course, we will make the recording available on our website as well. And our marquee event that we have been running for 16 years, with, of course, a brief burp for when we were all panicking in 2020, is something we call Business Ethics Week. And what that is a full week of events. So we have anywhere, depending on the size of it, between, usually it's around 10, sometimes it's even more events that are at different times and days during the week, and are all sorts of different areas where business, sustainability, and ethics interact. So we are still in the process of planning this. And of course, anyone who has done event planning during the era of COVID, especially this current surge, knows that it's, I'm very glad that we didn't start planning this in November, because we would have had a lot more face-to-face. We're going to see. Right now, at least in the US, we've been told Omicron is cresting, and part of the reason why I'm hosting this in April is not only because it's including Earth Day, which is nice to capture, but also by late April, we are very hopeful that the weather being nicer and all that sort of stuff will mean also that the virus is truly on the wane, and we might even have a few face-to-face events. I never thought the gold standard of event planning would be to have a reception where you can have food. And let's be honest, and when it's not in France, when it's in the US, the food is usually pretty crappy. It's underripe fruit, really bad cheese cubes, and maybe if you're lucky, some really cheap, bad wine. But never have I missed that so much when we can no longer have it. we'll see, but we'll definitely be having a fair number of Zoom events, and we will put the programming up once we have set it. So again, anything that we do on Zoom is going to be free and open to the public. Our face-to-face events, we have to be careful because our campus is actually super strict about events planning during COVID. So really, in order to set foot on campus, you have to prove you're vaccinated or file an exemption for religious medical reasons. Only 1% of whom have done that and then get tested regularly. So it's kind of a little hard to do that for just random people that want to come. The process is not always very easy. So we're also going to be partnering. There are some other initiative directors out there. So I'm working with the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Director, who is going to be running a junior, sort of a high school science fair thing. And I'm going to work with her and maybe do some climate modeling exercises for the students. Also, we have an incubator program that, because we're the San Francisco State Golden Gators, like the alligator, which is also called Gator, we call it Incubator. So we are going to work to sponsor startups that are focused on ethical and sustainable business ideas. So that's also in the running. Okay. So just some other things that are going on, and I must say this is not like I'm not listing everything. I'm just listing some sample things. Honestly, between all my classes, I had about 2 hours to prepare this event, and I know it kind of shows. We have at San Francisco State a climate change certificate that was just launched this year, and it's let students pick from 4 courses from a variety of different topics that look at the problem and potential solutions associated with climate change, and it's across all different colleges within the university, and we've gotten a pretty strong response for that from students who want to do that. So it's primarily geared towards undergraduates because most of the classes are undergraduate classes, but I think that the program is only growing. And our university has an Office of Sustainability that has been around for quite a while. And our climate action plan is that we are going to get our emissions down to 40% below what they were in 1990. As of 2030, and I haven't checked lately to see how we're doing on that, but they've been doing some pretty interesting things. Something recent that just happened. So SF Films, which is our local city organization committed to independent films, good films. They just awarded the, well, I don't know if it's a documentary, the comedy slash whatever you want to call it, tragedy of Don't Look Up. Show of hands for how many people have seen it, just out of curiosity. It's on Netflix. I'm just curious to see if anyone has seen it yet.
I plan to, but I haven't had the time yet to see
yeah.
this.
So how many people have heard about it? Out of curiosity. It's okay, well, a couple of people have. So it is a sort of what I would say a satirical take on how there is a lot of denial often when science brings something out. And for the most part, this was aimed at global warming. But as is discussed in this Q&A session, it could also apply to the pandemic, where at least in the US, you have people that are resisting the vaccine and doing all sorts of crazy things. Like for a while, it was taking ivermectin. Apparently the big thing now among some of the QAnon / whatever alt medicine people, they are drinking their own urine right now because they think the solution is out there. So if you ever want to amuse yourself, it's like, what are those crazy people in the fringe of the U.S. up to? Well, apparently we have some people that have their #1 solution. Okay, enough of the pee puns here. So this particular panel was filmed, and I thought it was kind of interesting. It's, if you're going to watch it, skip to the 13th minute, and then you can hear everyone else. So there is a San Francisco State physics professor there, but they also have the director, Adam McKay, and Leonardo DiCaprio talking about some of the interesting things that they found while this was going on. Okay, so just some other ideas for you. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is to give you a sense of, hey, what are some things that I can do if I'm interested in climate change, and what can I do to help combat it? So we are members of a couple different international organizations, and they have a lot of content in terms of teaching tools or in terms of actionable things that you can do. So we're a member, and Veronica has confirmed that your university is also a member of the Network for Business Sustainability, I believe. One or both, I forget which. And they're great because they have past examples of some cool events that they've run and all of that. And there's also the UN-based one, the Principles for Responsible Management Education. And they have different chapter conferences going on this spring. I think they alternate every other year between the international conference and the chapter conferences. So right now, we're helping to plan the North America one, and looking at how do we engage junior scholars who are maybe PhD students or assistant professors who are very focused on their research, and help support them if their research is a sustainability or ethics-based problem that they are working to solve, and help keep them engaged. Because sometimes what happens, I can speak to our university, we get a lot of people who very much hyper-focus on a problem, and they kind of never leave that box until maybe they're fully tenured, and they're like, well, okay, now I want to speak to the other 15, more than the 15 people that understand my really sort of specific work, and I want to see and show the world that I have a solution to a problem. And that's kind of late at that point. Okay, well, one of the things that I found from the Network for Business Sustainability folks was them pointing to some tools that could be used to help students. And by I mean tools, I mean like simulation games that help students experience ethical dilemmas or sustainability decisions, and lets them pretend to be a decision maker in the real world and do stuff. And the one that I found very interesting is something called En-ROADS, which is a tool that has been produced at MIT by some folks that then graduated from MIT or moved on. So it's actually not part of MIT anymore, but they're clearly very closely related. And it's a simulator with about 18 different levers, and it's super intuitive to use. A lot of times these mathematical models that people like academics like me build, just aren't explainable to someone who isn't an academic. And then the problem is, and we saw this with Don't Look Up, is then people don't understand what the scientists are saying. Like they just say, oh, it's just the scientists talking. We can't understand science speak. So the cool thing about this En-ROADS simulator is it makes it very easy to work with the different levers. So for example, well, what could we do if we put more money into, I don't know, investing in renewable technology? Or what could we do if we put more serious carbon taxes in place? What kind of changes would that have? And then you can kind of see, based on the results, like how much does this help us meet the target of keeping below, whether you look at 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees, you know, what are some things that you can do? So there's all sorts of training that you can do, and maybe I'm a little bit cynical, but I always have my COVID project back in my mind. So if for some reason I test positive and have to isolate for a week or so, I would like to have something that I can do to show for that. And so I'm going to go through all the training if and when this happens. Then once you know how to use it effectively, if you demo it to other people and you do it to at least in 2 events, you can become what they call an En-ROADS ambassador. And this is a club that is open for everyone. So it's something that if you all are looking for, you know, your COVID project, this might be a good one to try. And also, San Francisco, as you all know, is adjacent to Silicon Valley. In fact, you know, you could effectively say a lot of the companies, you know, even if they have traditionally been down in San Jose, they at least have offices up in San Francisco. So we have a lot of tech companies that are interested in sustainability, and we have a lot of incubators. And I just listed 2 examples of countries that actually have offices specifically in San Francisco to basically introduce their people that are interested in doing something new and novel to the Silicon Valley culture, and having exchanges. I am right next to Swiss Next, so I just visited them about a month ago and saw some of the things that they're doing. So there are opportunities like that. And this is where, you know, you look at what's going on at Sophia Antipolis, and I know that there are some connections between Sophia Antipolis and Silicon Valley. So doing something green right now is catching the eye of a lot of investors. It's not just because it's right, but it's also because people are looking at this now and saying, well, actually, there's probably is some money in all of this. So that is really all of the content that I have for you. One thing I'd just like you to consider is this has been a terrible time, this pandemic. There's no getting around it, but there has been a silver lining. And some of that silver lining is the fact that we are now all getting used to Zoom, and we can appreciate that we can attend events across, you know, well, there's time zone issues, but we can attend events across borders. And even if there are time zone issues, if we can just listen to the recording at some point, because the event was on at, I don't know, 3 a.m. our time, that also lets us get involved more. So the gates are a little bit open. And I would say that if any of the stuff that I'm talking about that we are doing at the Center for Ethical and Sustainable Business interests you, drop me a line at my my alternate email, which is sesby@sfsu.edu, and I will add you to our mailing list, and you will be the first to hear about any cool things that we are doing. So I'd like to see if there are any questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. This is really, really interesting. And in fact, I didn't know all of this. So really, thank you once again. A big thank you for all these information and for giving access to our students and to our colleagues to all these great ideas. And I'll surely send you an email to get into the mailing list. That's something that I'm very interested in. And yeah, if there are any questions from the participants, feel free to raise your hand and or activate your microphone. I'm not sure if you can do it by your own or I can help, or type a question. Really, we're here. Oh, Susan is here to reply to your question.
Yes, I am.
Discuss.
No questions? I will gladly share the slides. Let's see if I can do this here. Okay, so I just uploaded to the chat, and it's going to take a while because, of course, it's 2.5 megs. But I uploaded my slides, which are obviously not the prettiest slides, but they do have a lot of links.
I just thought about, I mean, I was, when I was listening to you earlier on, you were talking about a business simulation game maybe or application. And I thought about our international month, in fact, also offers a business simulation game to our students. Where professors are volunteering to coach the teams, and so they that would be taking place, in fact, tomorrow evening, and it would be a business simulation game with teams from all over the country, so from all over France, from different. I think there are 23 different IAE schools participating with teams, and I'm not sure if there's ethical and sustainable part in the business game, but maybe I think if Vikrant Janavad is still with us, if he's listening, he's one of the professors that will be coaching our team. So and maybe other teams. I think there are different groups. Maybe he can share if he knows about it, or he can share later once the business game is over tomorrow. But in any case, if there's no business or ethical or sustainable part in the business game, I'll be sure to talk about the organization to the IAE central team to maybe incorporate it next year. I don't know if maybe I don't know if yes, Vic is here. He replied, would you want to take to say something about the business game? Do you know if there's an ethical and sustainable part in the business game, Vic? Would you like to take the floor, or maybe add something else or ask something? I'm not sure if
I've changed it so people can unmute themselves if they would like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Vic, you should now be unmuted.
Yes.
Oh,
now I'm unmuted, and thank you very much. Yes, I did attend the meeting yesterday and a few days ago. The thing is, this is a international business game, and I suspect there are 132 students who are participating in this event. And this is a competition. they are taking one step higher, and they're asking all the students to participate both in French and as in English. And to my understanding, there's one section specifically designed for students who can speak in English and participate in English. And I found that was very interesting. And this is the first time they've ever done that. It should start at 5 o'clock here, which would be 8 o'clock in the morning in San Francisco. So if you fancy, you can also attend, and I can ask for, I can seek the permission for you to attend. You can guide the students. There will be certain options where people will definitely, there is something which I find the generation here is speaking quite a lot about sustainability, business ethics, CSR is something which is very important for them. And in my humble opinion, I think there will be certain issues or aspects being discussed during the business game. Obviously, this event it was designed to foster students exchanges from other IAE schools. It was more for marketing, but I'm sure that marketing doesn't just speak of sales and you know, and profitability. There are other consequences as well. I think tomorrow's event they will be given a game on mobile phones, and there will be certain discussions concerning the marketing approaches, marketing practices, and obviously return on investment, that sort of thing. But so far, no one discussed about sustainability, but I'm sure there will be certain questions being asked. Why? Because I think consumers, when they buy a mobile phone or any devices these days, they're very curious to understand its durability and where are the procurement coming from. As you know, people are discussing quite a lot these days about the equipment that go into the mobile phone, especially the procurement section, and the global supply chain, as you know, has been largely affected these days. Chip manufacturing, chip shortages are a major concern, and I think there will be certain discussions on those. We didn't discuss more on the implications for net zero or carbon zero, but I suspect there will be some questions tomorrow. I don't know. This is just my. I'm not sure if tricks are playing my minds, but these are certain things I think students will definitely ask. But I'll let you know if you fancy, you can come tomorrow. But if you can't, then
yeah, unfortunately, I have some other commitments tomorrow. Our school is we're starting up our semester, so there is lots of beginning of semester meetings over Zoom, of course. But it's great to know that it's wonderful. It sounds like you guys are doing a fantastic game, and maybe sometime in a future game, I would be happy to observe or even do what I can to help out.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Veronica, you had something to say?
No, I just wanted to thank Susan for her availability, and yeah, maybe if next year, if you're coming back to Nice, or even if you're not in Nice but are still available, we can put you up in the list for the professors coaching the teams. So it would be a great honor for our teams to have you as well.
Oh, great.
I have just one question, please, and I found that presentation very interesting. There's something that I was always interested in, and what are the approaches for carbon zero? As much as I understand, Delta has become, you know, carbon zero since 2020, I suppose. What are the initiatives being taken in San Francisco Bay Area concerning carbon zero or net zero commitments or initiatives?
Well, there's a variety of some. So we're putting in a lot more renewable energy, and not just solar panels, although solar panels certainly help, and wind turbines, but we're looking at alternate, additional ones as well. We're also trying to transition more to electric vehicles, and theoretically, sometime in the next 10 years, the state of California has very aggressive targets for how much, what's going to happen with electric vehicles. And we will see, because theoretically in 10 years, I supposedly will not be able to buy an internal combustion vehicle for use.
I reckon by 2030, all the vehicles will be electric. Is that if the information
so I mean, that's the, we'll see how the rollout is going. And of course, one of the things, not to sort of do a segue, but one of the problems that the electrical vehicle industry has to solve is that batteries right now are essentially disposed of after, let's just say 5-8 years. And that's a lot of heavy metals that A, aren't renewable, and B, are sources of pollution. So there are companies that are looking at what are some of the things that we can do to rejuvenate these batteries, or at least make use of these batteries somewhere else. So there's one of the things that we're seeing more and more of, it's not just generation of renewable power, it's storage, because renewable power is very intermittent. Solar power only works when it's sunny, and wind only works when it's windy. Yeah. So like places like Hawaii already have grid saturation. So if there are ways to store, and there's a lot of potential solutions out there. So there's one of the interesting things, we'll see what happens with this, is that some professors, not in California, but elsewhere, are looking at, well, we can make use of the rest cycle. And the great thing about that, they're not going to be able to produce batteries that you can use in vehicles because it's very heavy. But when you look at iron, it's one of the most common elements that we have. So if you can just have a bunch of iron ore that basically rusts and unrusts as we need to store or use power, you can effectively have almost free, non-toxic batteries, and that will go a great way to maybe not vehicular power, but at least residential usage power. There's all sorts of other things that can be done. So okay, the little pitch here. So I have here my little water bottle here. It's actually an SF State branded one. This is from a company called Pathwater, which one of the founders is a San Francisco State alum. And they were able to get in and make their big thing. So this whole thing, I mean, it looks like a swell or something like that. And when you go to San Francisco and fly in and out of the airport, we do not allow the sale of plastic water bottles anymore. So, you can't go and get a Dasani or anything like that. So what's happened is that these guys got an in. They sell the water bottle to you there with water in it for about $4.50 US. So, €4. And honestly, I use it just like a swell or any of those expensive water bottles. And you only have to use this about 5 times for it to essentially have a negative carbon footprint. I've used this probably 50 times already. So getting that in though can be hard, because a lot of times, you know, this is going to be more expensive than a standard cheap plastic water bottle. But if you can't, if consumers are incented not to buy the cheap plastic water bottles, or they can't because the airport doesn't sell them, then yes, they have to go for this, and a lot of them will continue to use it. So there's this interesting mix that we have in the Bay Area, where we can outlaw things that the rest of the US kind of laughs at us for. So we were one of the first places to not allow grocery stores to give away plastic bags. So then we all went out and we all got our little reusable bags. So it's not a culture shock when I come here and they don't give me a free plastic bag at the Monoprix. But you know, this behavioral stuff, it takes a lot of change, and there is no one single solution to how we're going to combat global warming. It's going to be lots and lots of little things that we do.
Lots of phases, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the first phase, well, COP26, and we made a lot of pledge. Hopefully, by 2030, if you can achieve those commitments of at least reduction up to, you know, or sustaining or to the critical level of 2 degrees, that would be good enough. But yes, there's a lot of discussions that I've heard. Students have been also discussing about those issues, and that was quite interesting. Obviously, they don't study on climate change and sustainable approaches, but there is a lot of discussions I've heard from the students' side. But yeah, that would be something interesting to see how we are going to shape this going forward. Well, again, thank you for your talk and giving us a different scenario, which we didn't know much of what was happening from your university. So thank you again.
Oh,
So
I'm happy to share things, and I see several of my former students here. You know, keep in touch. That I wear 2 different hats. I mean, if you send me stuff to my regular email, cholette@sfsu.edu, related to sustainability, I'll just forward it to the other one. But I kind of like have these 2 different email accounts now, so I try to separate out my basic, you know, what am I doing in a class versus what am I doing as the director. So there we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any